for someone like me, I'm a very like analytical, methodical person. Like I need a plan. And with Superfast, I just kept going back to the idea of just hit the questions, like hit the questions. No matter how low I was scoring in the beginning, I'm just like, okay, keep doing the questions. And then I never opened a review book. The only books I opened were the Superfast outlines.
Welcome to another episode of the CPA Exam Experience podcast from SuperfastCPA. I'm Logan, and in this episode, you're going to hear Nate and I talking to Tiffany. The thing that I will always remember about Tiffany's interview is that she woke up super early and went to Starbucks every day to study in the morning. So I think you're going to like that part of the interview. In this interview, you'll hear her talk about how she managed to have a family life, work out, study for the CPA exams, and work all at the same time. I just think this is an awesome interview, and I think you're really going to like it. I think you're going to think it's inspiring and super helpful. Before we jump into the interview, just want to give everybody a reminder of the free webinar that we have on SuperfastCPA.com. If you're struggling, trying to figure out the CPA exams, you failed some, or even if you're about to start the CPA exam, this webinar will be the best thing you can do to improve your study process. In the webinar, I guarantee that you're going to find something or hear something that just clicks, just resonates with you, and that you're going to find super helpful. So definitely look into that. The link to the webinar will be in the description of the YouTube video or in the podcast app that you use. With that said, let's jump straight into the interview with Tiffany.
The first question is just, what were your biggest struggles with the study process before finding and starting with Superfast CPA?
I think one of the main struggles was kind of getting into my own groove. Like obviously these tools give you a guideline, but it's like accommodating that to your life. And it took me, I want to say it took me a good month before I got into my own groove of what my study days would look like. And then I think the second struggle was you have so many tools, each with a different strategy. So I had Superfast. My main study review was Surgent, and they kind of had their own like approach.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was like kind of finding the best between the two. And then for that first month, I would kind of teeter-totter on both.
Okay.
And so that held me back a bit. Yeah.
Yeah. And that will be, so that's good to know. So that's something we can talk about. Did you have a period where you were studying for this exams before you found Superfast CPA, or did you just start with us when you started?
So actually, I got my bachelor's degree 20 years ago, like literally 2001. I took CPA, two parts of the CPA right after with Becker, and it just didn't work out. You know, it was just too hard, too much information. Dropped that, and then 20 years later, I started. And so I think I had more motivation to stick with it this time.
Mm-hmm.
But when I came back this time, I had purchased Surgent, and I was like, a review alone is just not going to do it. I'm doing something wrong. So that's where I found Superfast.
Awesome. Okay.
And how did you find it? Was it through YouTube or?
It was YouTube.
Okay.
A YouTube ad?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So once you got in a groove with everything, what were maybe the main thing or the top two or three things? What were the most helpful parts of Superfast CPA for you, whether it was the strategies or the study tools?
Definitely the strategy as a beginning guideline. For someone like me, I'm a very like analytical, methodical person. Like I need a plan. And with Superfast, I just kept going back to the idea of just hit the questions, like hit the questions. No matter how low I was scoring in the beginning, I'm just like, okay, keep doing the questions. And then I never opened a review book. The only books I opened were the Superfast outlines.
Okay.
So those were really helpful. Like aside from the community itself and just like looking up other folks' struggles, like the outlines were super helpful. Like that literally was like the only piece of text I would read.
Okay. Awesome. And then did you use the study tools kind of throughout the day at all? Or was it mainly the review notes when you were studying your main session?
So review notes, I listened to the audio for maybe BEC, like a lot of the heavy memorization type parts. And then as throughout the day, I would use the app just to hit questions even more.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Okay. So we'll just kind of go into hearing your whole story now.
Sure.
All right. So you mentioned, starting 20 years ago when you were out of your bachelor's, and then it just didn't happen. That's a very common story. So
right.
20 years go by. What made you come back to the CPA or feel like you needed it or wanted it?
Sure. My career, loved accounting, started out in accounting, and then in the middle of my career went more finance, like financial analysis. Knew I had wanted to get back into accounting once I started working with startups. And with startups, like, and nothing's ever guaranteed. And so I knew I wanted to get my CPA just, to have it on the resume, just to have more options open because you just don't know what the future brings.
And it sounds like the first thing you did was, I mean, you eventually chose Surgent and then you
Right.
just started studying according to their plan, or how was it in the very beginning?
The very beginning, it was tough. Surgent, they're very much like, go through this huge pre-quiz, which is like 200, 300 questions. And so that already
Right.
brings you down because you get everyone wrong. And then from there, they're like, don't worry about it. Start with the first section. Don't move on until you're at a certain level. And that just slowed me down. I was like, it's going to take me 5 years to pass a CPA if I'm not moving forward because I'm not like progressing
Mm-hmm.
by their score. And so I just knew I needed a different way of thinking about it.
And you see our YouTube ad. I'm guessing you watched the free training webinar. And
Yep.
do you remember specifically anything that, I mean, what made sense to you from that?
What made sense to me were the focus on hitting the questions. I mean, when I would do it myself, I would hit the questions, get discouraged, and not even hit like the 20 more topics that I had. I would
Mm.
literally be stuck on the first section, and then that was it. And so I'm like, well, the approach makes sense where you're getting exposure to everything all at once and then kind of filling in like every day your weaknesses. And so that really made sense. I knew my approach wasn't working. Superfast was so opposite of the way I would do things in the past. I was more of a read everything first, then do the question, read everything in the next section, then do the question. And that was just very, very slow.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I knew I needed to do something completely different.
Yeah. So in other
And
words, and I think this is really common, basically, you were making the study process too hard, right?
Yeah.
Is basically what you're
Oh,
saying.
definitely. Definitely. And even if you take a step back, there's so many topics and so much information. Like realistically, you can't have depth of knowledge in every single little topic, right? And so you do have to expose yourself to the breadth of it to pass this test,
Mhm.
right?
yeah, there's the saying that like that far, it might not quite be like this anymore, but still probably still is, where
Hmm.
it was, a mile long, but just like an inch
Hmm.
deep, just tons of, just so many
Right.
things you're supposed to know. Yeah. And I had a question. Uh, so, you're doing your approach at the beginning, like what was the difference in like time? Like were you studying way more at first? When like how did that look?
Um, I definitely was, I'm very good at being disciplined about blocking time.
Hmm.
And so the actual amount of time was the same, but it was just that slow feeling of you're only like trudging little by
Hmm.
little. And I spent the whole 2 hours like reading two sections that I didn't even understand after I finished reading it. You know what I mean? Um, so Superfast was great because it taught me that you can gain understanding by doing the questions. Kind of the opposite. Do the questions and then go back and think about what it's telling you.
So were you
Yeah.
studying 2 hours from the beginning on your own? Like was that kind of like how you figured?
That was like my goal in the beginning was 2 hours every day,
Okay.
and then Saturday, Sunday, just hitting like the 5 hours.
Oh wow. So you were already kind of implementing the time that we say on your own. So that, I mean,
Yeah.
that's great. You were kind of already used to that structure.
The funny thing was, I blocked out the 2 hours Monday through Friday when I was doing kind of the old fashioned reading first
Hmm.
method. And then when I started super fast, I really asked myself, like, how is this going to fit into my schedule? I really liked working out in the morning, and I felt like I needed that, like, mentally to pass this
Oh
test.
yeah.
And so with Superfast, it allowed me to do 1 hour actually, Monday through Friday. I would work out throughout the day, hit the app, go through the outline, the Superfast outline, and then Saturday, Sunday, I really literally have a big block of 5 or 6 hours each day to do like catch up stuff.
Wow. So it helped you be so efficient that you were
Yeah.
studying an hour a day. Is that what you're
Yeah.
saying? And,
Like
and then
kind of
obviously
like
like
a
the throughout
focus
the day.
block, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. Because you do feel like you cover more once you're just like hitting the
Hmm.
questions.
For sure.
Right. It's yeah. There's a lot that, like, I always say this. Everything affects everything else. But like, just from the
Hmm.
most basic standpoint, when a study session is just such a slog, like you said, you spend two
Yeah.
hours barely reading through the text,
Yeah.
and you didn't even get to practice questions, and you know that
Yeah.
there's 100 plus topics still to cover. It's hard to even. yeah,
Oh
want to
yeah.
keep doing it, or it's
Right.
just hard to
Yeah, and
feel
that
like
can only
anything's happening.
yeah, that can only last for so long. It's like a reason why I think a lot of people give up. Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay. So how'd the first exam, the whole study window and the first exam go in this, currently?
I actually scored the highest on BEC, which was my first subject, I think because I just really followed the plan, followed the time, the study time, followed the outline, listened to the audio. Um, and this is true for all four subjects. Like, even though I was very, very prepared for BEC, you take that test and you're just like, this could go either way. Like, I don't know if I
Yeah.
passed it or not. But I did pretty well. And that's the same for all four. It's like you prepare and you prepare, but you still feel like, oh gosh, like, I had no idea how I did.
Hmm.
But it's definitely like, it's almost like muscle memory, like doing the questions every day. You're just trained to like answer in a certain way. And I think that takes you
Yes,
through the exams. Yeah.
absolutely. And I don't, I don't know how to put this in words or like what these specifics are, but there's like knowing the material, but then there's all
Hmm.
these advantages, like the nuances of questions. Like
Right.
you just get good at
Hmm.
answering questions. And that's such a big distinction. Just like, what are you spending most of your study time? And like you said before, so many people out there, they just think they need to kind of start with the background understanding, meaning the videos or the
Right.
text. And yeah, it just takes so much time to do that. And you can do all that and still not really know how to answer the questions per topic anyways. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And some of those questions are so like long and drawn out that it just tires you mentally. So if you don't train your mind to like go through them, like test day, you could just like walk out halfway through.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Yep.
It's yeah, it's like I mean, you mentioned exercise earlier, like
Hmm.
it's kind of like training yourself to be able to
Hmm.
have that mental endurance to
Yep.
make it through 4 hours of testing.
Oh
Um
yeah.
I think it's yeah.
Yeah.
I think you may have mentioned this, but just to make sure I remember, did you say you had taken some exams before? So like 20 years ago, had you taken some?
Yep.
And then did you take any this time before using Superfast, or did you from the
No,
get-go start like
from
you
the
took your
get-go.
first exam? Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And so you scored the highest, so you passed that first attempt. You passed BC, obviously.
Yes. Past BC. And that was around August, and I felt like it was a good time to take FAR since in my mind I had like the rest of the year, December, I had a lot of time off. But then life gets in the way. I think that was a period where all of us in the household were sick the most. And so I did reschedule FAR. And again, that's another tip is that with your review course, your super fast questions, if you're not getting them right, like you're probably not ready for
Hmm.
that test. And so it's being realistic about, okay, especially for FAR.
Hmm.
And so I delayed FAR once, but I passed first attempt when I took it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was going to ask, so you
Hmm.
passed BC. And
Hmm.
so was that a validation of your study process working,
Oh yeah.
or did you kind of know before you took it, like, okay, I can tell I'm have a good handle on these questions and everything?
I think like in the middle of the study process, I'm like, okay, this is really working. Like saw my scores increase on Surgent when I didn't think that I literally would get every question wrong on Surgent. Like I would score in the 20s and the 30s. And then eventually, I think my overall average score on Surgent before I took BEC was high 70s. And
Okay.
generally, I can say I always made sure I was above that 75 in Surgent. And generally, when I took the exams, my scores were higher than whatever my average was on Surgent. But I
Okay.
always made sure, like I tell people, make sure you're past 75 if you're taking
Mm.
Surgent before you take that test.
Yeah, especially now with the really long score release dates.
Hmm.
And I mean, you don't have to worry about it anymore, but you just have to wait months. So it's more important than ever to try and be really sure that you have a good
Oh
chance
yeah,
of passing.
yeah.
Um, so what type of life gets in the way events, or were there any big wrenches thrown into the gears during
Oh
your
yeah,
study process?
yeah. So BC was good. It was like, I mean, I don't want to say low hanging fruit, but for me, that's why I took BC. I'm like, I'm familiar with the topics. I can pass it and feel good. So I felt good, and then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to hit far because I have all this time in the fall. I had an international trip, and of course, coming back from that trip, I get COVID. My daughter gets COVID. And then we get some random virus in December where we're just out. Um, and again, you just have to be realistic. You're like, are my study sessions going to be like productive if
Hmm.
I'm studying sick? So that literally was for the beginning of FAR. So I delayed another month. So by the time January, February hit, I was good. Went back to my study process. And that's another nice thing about Superfast. Like it's so, once you're in it, it's so disciplined that even when you have a long break, you can just get back into it. Like your body is just used to doing it, that it's not hard to be like, okay, this is what I do.
Yeah.
And we try to make it simple enough that it's easy to do that as well. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
just so straightforward. The review notes, the audio notes, the quizzes, that it's not like your brain is um so taxed by doing all those things. It's easy to
Mm-hmm.
jump back in. I like that you said that.
And I can't say enough about the outlines or the
The,
study guides or outlines.
review notes.
Yeah, like I took those with me everywhere. Morning of, that's what I would study. I would go through, I wouldn't even go through questions. I would just go through the outlines every single time. And those were like really helpful because again, you don't get overwhelmed by all the text. It's just like
Hmm.
kind of the quick summary of each topic.
So were you making a printed copy of these, or are you just
Oh
on
yeah,
your phone? Okay.
yeah, yeah. Printed copy helped. It gave me that security of like, okay, I'm actually like studying something. If I was on the plane, I could take it. Um, yeah, and I could highlight. It just was like a physical thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
I personally loved the physical super fast review notes
Mhm.
as well. Did you print them out and put them in like a binder, or how did you carry them
Um,
around?
yeah, I just printed them through like FedEx print and had them like combined it.
Oh, did like do the spiral
Mhm.
for you or something? That's nice, nice.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's see. So as far as motivation, sometimes, so basically, did you find motivation, did it kind of come easily once you got your study process nailed down and you just kind of knew that this is
Mhm.
working? Or did you struggle with motivation throughout the process? What was that like?
I want to say I struggled like 50% of the time. And again, I'm a very disciplined person. There were days where, again, in the middle of studying, during a study period, I would still get it all wrong. I would just, in my mind, I would always say, pain is temporary. This is temporary. Like, and once I passed BEC, it was like, you know what? I passed this one. I can pass the next one. Just keep it. I think Superfast gave me kind of that like compass North Star to be like, okay, just stay on the course and you're going to get this. I have a tendency to lose focus. And once things aren't working out for me, I kind of, I'm like, oh, what am I doing? Or you start questioning everything. But because
Hmm.
Superfast was just the constant, it was easy to be like, okay, what am I doing? This is what I'm doing every day, regardless of anything else. Like, I don't care if I get them all wrong. This is what I'm doing every day, regardless. And
Yeah.
that was like really helpful. But oh no, there were days where I was just like, oh God, this is gonna
Hmm.
happen.
Okay. So on that, when you've mentioned it a couple times, where you start doing the questions, especially for FAR, and you're
Mhm.
getting in the 20s, or most of the questions you're getting wrong.
Yeah.
What was your actual process for improving on that? Like, I mean, would you reperform them with the solution covered up, or what were you actually doing to where you were missing all the questions and then
hmm
getting to where, you obviously passed the exam eventually?
Especially for FAR, like during Monday through Friday when I was doing my 1 hour and throughout the day app questions, there was always like the common theme. Like for FAR, it was leases that was giving me trouble, bonds that was giving me trouble. So on the weekends, I would go back and hit videos on those topics. I think I used Universal because Universal has a lot of like free videos on YouTube.
Hmm.
So I would supplement with videos on things I really didn't understand and then go back and do like more questions. So for me, it was like, okay, obviously I'm not understanding by reading or by doing the questions, watch a video, and then attempt it again. And those are the ones that I would make heavy note cards on, um, draw things out, outline,
Awesome.
When you say note cards, do you mean like flashcards? Did you make flashcards
flashcards.
throughout? Okay, awesome, awesome.
Yeah. So I would make flashcards whenever I came across like a kind of more complex topic. And then actually before I started my questions, depending on the section, I would just go through flashcards really quick before I started questions. And this was like every single day.
Yeah, kind of like to get a primer, kind of get in
hmm
the
hmm
zone. Did you do
Yeah.
physical flashcards or on your phone, like digital?
I tried digital, but physical, again, I think it was like the touching and the flipping
Mm,
that helps like kind of my mind warm up. So I did physical and just like the writing of it kind of reinforces ideas.
yeah.
And some of them you would draw out, you said, almost make like diagrams.
Yeah, yeah. If you've seen kind of the Universal videos, they have a lot of diagrams and stuff like that. So I would draw
Okay.
it out.
Yeah. I mean, that's the main idea of flashcards is
hmm
your personal I mean, whatever it is, like sometimes it can be, okay, what's the thing I always forget on this type of
Yeah.
calculation, or drawing out a diagram, or some crazy mnemonic, or
Hmm.
they should just be this personal thing that almost don't make sense if you handed them to
Yeah.
someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you mentioned, you know, uh, some days were just kind of more difficult than others. And sorry, I'm trying to think of how to word this question. Uh, so with your like day to day, um, you were mentioning your daughter. Like, how did you maintain like family,
Hmm.
studying, work, exercise? How did you?
Yeah.
What did you have to do to kind of make sure it all still happened?
For me, I knew I wouldn't do anything after work because I work all day. It's like I get my daughter from school. Like realistically, in my mind, that wasn't going to happen for me. So I thought, okay, so what can I do? I would get up at 3:45 in the morning, go to Starbucks. This was like every day. Go to Starbucks, because they open at 4:30, study for my hour, and then my workout gym is right across the street.
Nice.
So I had to really look at what I was doing and what I didn't want to cut out, what I did want to cut out, and like adjust from there. Like it sucked. Like my body
Yeah.
was wrecked from like lack of sleep, but that was something that I could do. I mean, I'm a morning person, but like 3:45
Right.
was
That's not
tough.
even
And I just
morning.
said, no,
That's
I'm
nighttime.
willing to make, yeah, I'm willing to make that sacrifice so that after work I didn't have to do anything. And the
Yeah.
weekends was fine because again, I'd get up early. Even if I put in 5 hours, they were still in bed. So I'd come home and they would start waking up. So
So
Yeah,
3:45. Wow.
that
So did
is.
you study at Starbucks? Is that
I
what you were
studied at
saying?
Starbucks.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, that was like another motivator too, because this whole process probably took me about a year. And so going every day. So it's like so many people were invested in this besides myself, people asking about it. So that was like, I have like a lot of pride. So I was like, I cannot not pass this test because
Yeah.
the people at Starbucks will
Yeah,
know.
yeah. So there were people at Starbucks who were like, "Did you pass the
Oh,
test?"
yeah.
Like it was kind of like this little community at Starbucks with you.
Yeah, they were like so sweet. Like I would
That's
just get the
awesome.
coffee. And if you're in there, coffee refills are like free. So they would come by and like fill the coffee. And
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
yeah.
So one thing I was going to ask, I mean, you kind of answered it in multiple ways, but the question was, yeah, what was just some hobby or thing, that you weren't willing to give up during the
Hmm.
process to maintain balance and, just not go crazy? It sounds like working out and then the evenings with your family.
Yeah, working out in the morning, evenings, just because I knew, like, even the work day, sometimes it doesn't end at a certain time. And it's like the last thing you want is like to be like, oh God, I still got to work, but I still got to study. That just wasn't going to fly in my life. So I knew it's like mornings were the only option.
Yeah. And what about your, well, before the test day experience,
Hmm.
what did you do for a final review, if any, or?
That's a good question. So 2 weeks in, so I made sure I was like scoring 70s above 75 for kind of like the daily MCQs. The last 2 weeks, that's where I would hit the Sims hard. So I'd go through questions every day, make sure I do a couple of Sims. I did maybe one practice test, 2 or 3 weeks out for each section, but I only did one. I usually didn't score that great. Um,
Mhm.
so I just made sure, like, overall, I was doing pretty good. So those were the last 2 weeks again. Questions, Sims. For BEC, even the written portion, like I wouldn't technically answer the written portion. I would look through it, like think about, in my mind how I would answer this. And then it was really helpful just to look at the answer.
Yeah.
They write all the memos. Like that was like kind of like reading. So those were the last 2 weeks. And then the day of, I would spend the morning going through the super fast outline and flashcards if I had any.
About how many flashcards, let's say for FAR, did you make? Was this like hundreds or dozens?
No, not 100, but maybe like 75 for each section, 75-ish.
Yeah.
So just like this little stack of 75
Hmm.
cards. And did you
Yeah.
carry that around with you, like to work and to everything,
Um,
or did you just keep it
no.
at home?
Yeah, I would just keep it. I would only go over my flashcards right before I studied the MCQ sessions every day.
Okay. So at Starbucks, okay. So you were
Yeah,
using it at
my
Starbucks.
first
Okay.
thing. Yeah.
So with Surgent, we get asked this a lot, just because their approach is supposed to be this, not analytic. What do they call it? Diagnostic. You take that massive
Uh-huh.
diagnostic thing, and then
Yeah.
supposedly they just give you the lessons you need. Is that how
Hmm.
you used it, or you just kind of manually covered the topics?
I just manually, there's a setting on there where you could use like the AI where they would give you like what you're scoring the worst on. But no, I just did like the manual version where I just went through each section.
Yeah. And I don't really like the idea of the diagnostic thing because like
Hmm.
you said, from the beginning, you're taking this massive exam just from the
Yeah.
get-go, someone that may not have studied CPA recently or anyways, it's just such a how long did
Yeah.
that first diagnostic exam take you? Is it like 5 hour
Oh my
thing?
God. It was like close to, it was probably Saturday, one of my Saturday sessions that was like 5 hours. It was so long. And it was like, I don't want to say it was pointless, but it was just like, I could just blindly click the answers and still get the same
Right.
score, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
And then
from
it brings up another thing where I had started with Becker years and years ago. Going through this process, I just wondered, I'm like, it doesn't even really matter what review course like you use, as long as you have like a whole library of questions, right? That
mhm.
cover all the topics. I think people get caught up in like, oh, is this the right review course? Um,
Oh yeah. Exactly.
yeah.
And that is what I tell people. It really doesn't matter, because
Hmm.
sometimes, you know, if someone's really struggling, it starts to,
Yeah.
maybe it's like
Oh yeah.
easier to be like, oh, I think it might be this review course that I'm
Oh
using
yeah.
that's not good.
Yeah.
But
I was there.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's not me, it's the review
Um,
course. Is there any particular reason you used Surgent? Like, was the work providing it, or did you just yeah? Why did you pick Surgent?
I probably chose Surgery because it was the least expensive. I felt like you got
Very
more for
valid.
what you were paying.
Yeah,
And then, deep down, I knew it was all about the questions, whereas I felt like the other review course really like focused on go through the book, go through the lessons, and then answer the questions, where Surgeon was a little bit different.
yeah,
Um,
and something we're noticing is there does seem to be this mental shift just in the CPA environment. A lot of people are realizing that. Like so I think that finally people are starting to like more
mm,
than just a few people like yourself. I think a lot more people are starting to kind of turn that direction of the questions are the most important thing. We've kind of noticed that shift recently. So, um, yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter what review course you use in the end because, like you said, it's just as long as you can have good
oh yeah,
questions and good
yeah,
explanations, then you're good to go.
yeah. Because if you think about it, if you look it up, like if you want supplemental help and you go to YouTube and look up a video on leases, it's a totally different person, totally different review course, but what they're saying is exactly what's in every other review
Hmm.
course.
mhm.
So it's not like it's specific to Becker that you're learning something about leases that's not in Surgeon. Or
Yeah.
Yeah. And there is just that there's that thing you have to go through where you go through questions, it's really confusing, and I think
mm-hmm,
that just stops a lot of people, and it's more
mm-hmm,
comforting to watch a video, or it's easier to feel like you understood a video
yeah,
or the text. And so a lot of
yeah,
people, I think they kind of like that
mm-hmm,
like, okay, yeah, I understood that video. And then that process
yeah,
of pushing through the confusion on questions and simulations to where you get good at it is, I just think what a lot of people don't do, but that's just the only thing that matters for doing well
yeah,
on the real exam.
yeah.
Okay, so what about test day? Did you have any time management issues, or was test day relatively smooth, or was there any
Um,
shock about these sims are way harder than any practice sims I saw?
the Sims, I would say the Sims, and this is across the board for every section, were a bit harder than what I saw in the review courses, but the general ideas were the same.
Hmm.
Um, But other than that, I'm a morning person, so just doing it in the morning kind of like took away all the anxiety. Because when you go to a test center in the middle of the day, I was surprised how many people go through a test center. Like that kind of adds to the nervousness and like you feel rushed almost.
Hmm.
So
And
I,
it's
I just
kind of
love
like
going first thing in the morning.
visiting someone in prison. It's
Oh yeah,
it's serious. It's a serious
yeah.
ordeal. They act so serious about
Oh
everything,
yeah, oh yeah,
They
taking your
definitely add to the
fingerprints and
stress for sure.
yeah.
And so in the test, so like you're saying, Sims maybe were a little bit more difficult. How did you feel about
Mhm.
the multiple choice questions? Like, did you go through those really fast because you just felt really good about them? Like, like were you getting into the
Yeah.
exam and finishing early, like, or were you taking the full 4 hours?
I didn't take the full four. For most of them, I probably finished within like, I still had like 30 minutes left.
Nice.
And it's very rare that I would get hung up on a question. Like I do feel like with the MCQs, I was exposed to most of it.
Yeah. And so you had plenty of time to work on the sims because you were able
Hmm.
to just get through
Oh yeah,
the MCQs pretty good.
yeah,
That's awesome. Okay.
yeah.
Let's see. Did you do anything to? So one thing that I get asked a lot is the whole learning style thing, and my response is always, well, again, the only thing that matters is you know how to answer these MCQs and
Hmm.
sims on test day. But
Yeah.
for you in the study process, was there anything that you did that kind of tailored it to your what you feel like is your main learning style? Or
Um, before Superfast, would say I'm the type that has to read everything first, like literally go back into the beginning of time of accounting in order to understand like all the questions.
yeah.
So before I thought that was my learning style, but in reality, it's like you're taking a test. Everyone's answering the same questions, so it makes sense that you should be answering these questions every day.
Hmm.
And then I know some people like videos, and I do like videos, but it was like those were just kind of little bits of my whole study process and learning style. It really was just like hitting those questions. And then when I felt the need to have thoughts more organized in my head, I would literally go through the outline books like from start to finish. Like very rarely would I just open one of your books and be like, okay, let me start in the middle here. Like I
Hmm.
literally just like went through them.
You mean like just throughout the day, whenever 5 minutes at a time, you just worked your way through start to finish, or when you were reading your
So
printed
when
ones?
Yeah, when I was reading the printed ones, I would make sure I have the time to like go through the whole thing. Because in my
Right.
mind, like in my learning style, I want to know like all the major topics I'm thinking of and then kind of filling in from there. So
Hmm.
your outlines were, I mean, printed, it's a thick book, but
Yeah.
it's big font. So
Right.
so it wasn't that long. Like you could just go through and be like, okay, these are the areas I have to hit. These are the ones I'm like kind of shaky on. So when I go back to my study session, this is what I'll work on. Right.
Okay.
So when you so did you use the app very much, or like did you mainly just use your physical like how many times would you say you read through the review notes in total?
Um,
Was that like a really consistent thing or just sometimes?
It's not very consistent.
Okay.
So I'd go through all the questions. I would say for one section, definitely the last 2 weeks, I would go through it almost like every other day, like the whole book every other
Wow.
day.
Okay.
But it's probably very rare that I would go through it. Maybe once in the beginning, I'll scan through just to see what the topics are. Um,
Okay.
yeah, it was like more closer to the end where I needed to kind of put everything together.
Okay.
And kind of along with that, did you ever use the audio notes? Or was that not really your style?
I did use audio notes for BC, but then eventually not so much just because like it would only be in my car.
Hmm.
And so that's where it gets kind of choppy where it's like, oh, I'm listening to it on the way to school or on the way to work. And
Hmm.
then you have to figure out where you were last time. So just for BC, I used it a lot, but for the other sections, no.
Okay.
So going back to just getting up at 3:45,
Hmm.
did you have a period of having to get used to that, or
Yeah.
when did I guess sorry, two-part question. Did you have to decide uh a few weeks in like, okay, this is what this is going to have to be.
Hmm.
I'm going to have to get up at this time, and then yeah, how did you get used to getting up that early?
In my mind, initially, I was like, I'm going to get up at 3:30, go downstairs to my office and start studying. And I did that maybe, gosh, the first week, and it just was not working. It's just the idea of like being at home and, I could like put the laundry in or I
Mhm.
could get an email from work and like start working. And so I'm like, well, that's not working. But if I physically go somewhere, like you're dressed, like you're ready to go, it made it a lot easier. So even though it was still difficult to get up at 3:30, 3:45,
Yeah.
it just the movement made it a habit versus
Hmm.
just
Yeah.
going downstairs in my PJs, right?
Yeah. Yep, definitely. And that's I guess start at 4 in the morning. Starbucks is like your only option. You're not going to a library at 4.
Yeah. I know. Yeah, and it was really nice because you see the same people every day. So that was another thing. Like it's always the same people that walk in every day at the same time, and then that's kind of a habit. Like
Mhm.
it's like when you walk your dog, you see the same people, you say hi, and so your body is like, okay, this is what I'm doing every day.
Yep.
Yeah.
I did get up at 4 actually, when I was studying, and I would just go downstairs and just study. And I got to where it's hard to say I liked I don't know. I did kind of look forward to my morning little
Yeah.
study routine because it was just
Yeah.
every single day. And I was, I was passing. I knew it was working. Did you kind of
Yeah.
have that? Not to say it was like fun, obviously, but did
Right.
you just, it became this thing that you almost looked for, not looked forward to,
Oh,
but
I get what you're saying. Yeah,
yeah.
it definitely did become a part of my day. Like so much so, and it was again like a year, 13 months that it took me, and this was like every single day. It got to the point where it was so ingrained in my daily routine that after I was all done, I'm like, I would still find myself going to Starbucks
Hmm.
because it's like, oh gosh, what do you do now? But it
Yeah.
did
Hmm.
become a part of your life. Like it just became routine. So even on the days where you didn't feel like getting up, it was just routine. Like
Yeah.
it's just what you did.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a huge,
Hmm.
when you get to that point, then you're not just, you're not fighting yourself every
Yeah.
step of the way. You're not fighting yourself
Yeah.
to, I got to find the study time. If you're doing it differently every
Oh
day,
yeah.
it's like, it's not going to happen.
Oh yeah. And for me, getting out of the house, that prevented me from feeling like when I was home, I would think, oh, let me check my email first, or
Hmm.
trying to create this whole other process that had nothing to do with, studying for the CPA. Whereas if I physically left, I knew my time was limited because I had to
Hmm.
drive. Like I knew what I was doing. This is what I had to do during this hour.
Yeah.
Yeah. Creating that like that routine, and also having this a space away from your normal like home
Hmm.
life, it is super. I mean, for me, um I had two little kids well, I still have two little kids, but they were even younger, and I knew that there was no way I was gonna get anything
Yeah.
done if I was still at home when they woke up. So yeah, I mean, I left and went to work every morning to study. So I think there's something to be said about creating those habits. Like your body,
Yeah.
it's not just about your studying, but you just become, your whole body becomes used to, okay, when I'm sitting in this location, Starbucks or wherever, when I'm sitting in
Hmm.
this, and it really helps you to get in the
Yeah.
zone faster.
Yeah. That brings up another good point. Like, obviously, I had the discipline, but before I even started this journey, like, I talked to my husband. I'm like, look, I'm thinking about doing this again. It's going to be hard. We were married the first time I took it, but I obviously did not study that much. So make sure he was on board, because then, like, the times where you could feel guilty about leaving to go study, you didn't, because like you set that expectation. And so even if something was going on, like I felt fine being like, gotta study.
Yeah.
Bye. I mean, obviously if it's nothing like huge,
Yeah.
um, but it's like everyone knew, like that was like the baseline.
Yeah.
Um, and the other thing I was going to say is that structure gave you the ability to, you were done
Hmm.
by the time you were done with work, you didn't have to think or worry about studying anymore. And you were
Yeah.
still able to go do your workouts.
Yeah.
But yeah, the structure just, you kind of have to pin your day at like the time you go to
Hmm.
bed and the time you get up, and it's based around making your study session happen. But if you nail
Yeah.
that, then it's freeing in a way. I mean, as much as possible during the
Oh yeah.
process.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
So what was it like getting your fourth passing score, realizing you're done, you never have to go to Starbucks at 4 a.m? Did you do anything big to celebrate?
No, because then like obviously you pass the test, not thinking of what comes after.
Mhm.
And then it's like, gosh, there's a whole separate application process to get your license.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of like, wait, I don't officially have it yet.
Hmm.
So we like held off on any celebration because I'm like, I want it to wait till it's official.
Mm.
But that's when you find out you don't have like the ethics class that you have to go back and take.
Yeah.
Um, so funny enough, so I had to take an ethics class because I went to college so long ago where it wasn't a requirement to take like the accounting ethics.
Oh. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so luckily like a local college had a course, like a 6-8 week course that I just finished. I finished in December, sent that all in, and I did just get my CPA number this past Saturday. They sent an email.
Hey,
So
that's awesome.
Awesome.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it is a long process. I think that like it
Yeah.
took like 3 or 4 months after I passed the exams
Oh yeah.
to even still become a
Yep.
CPA. Like it was just because I still had other stuff to do. But at least the
Yeah.
biggest thing, is out of the way. Like
Oh yeah.
the exams is the real struggle.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's one of those things like, again, I'm a disciplined person. If I put my mind to something, I can do it. But it's one of those things where you're like, gosh, can I like, is this really going to happen? Like, can you really do it? And so when you do it, you're like, holy crap, like I actually did that.
Yeah.
Kind of along that, have you taken either, more like these strategies that you've learned from taking the CPA exam, have you like applied that in any other parts of your life? Like, have you kind of been motivated to do other things?
I think just the general approach of not adding fluff where you don't need to add fluff. Like I'm a very fluffy person. I like, overthinking things and like, going back to again the beginning of time to understand something. But Superfast really made me think like, okay, cut what you don't need to think about right now. Like, what is it you're trying to do? Like, that's what
Mhm.
you should focus on. So it definitely helps with focus, like overall.
Yeah. I guess, yeah, just cutting out steps or I quote this book all the time, Atomic Habits, just
Okay.
reducing the amount of friction it takes you to kind of do the core steps towards
Yeah.
your goal each day. And I guess
Yeah.
that's one way of describing that. Just go straight to the
Yeah.
questions because that's what you'll
Yeah.
do on test day. Yeah. Okay. So we're getting down. We've kind of covered everything. Let's see. One of my last questions would be uh, I just had it right here. I guess if you could go back and now, because you kind of mentioned that, what about, um, was there anything about the study process overall or taking these exams that
Mhm.
was kind of a big shock to you in any way, or just something that you hadn't really heard about the CPA study process that you got into it and it was a bigger deal than you thought it would be?
This is going to sound so bad, but honestly, like obviously it's a test where you're answering questions. But the fact that what helped me was mainly focusing on the questions was like, in the beginning, it was like, is this really going to work? Because I'm not reading anything, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going like outline by outline and reading like the Surgent book. So that was like really surprising. It's like, can I really do this just answering questions every day? Slowly, like when you start picking things up and your score starts getting higher, that's like kind of the reward. You're like, okay, this is working because I am learning from just doing
Mhm.
questions every day.
Yeah. Okay. So here's, hopefully we can create a sound bite out of this. Or so that's one of my biggest, like if I get a refund request, right? Like for our
Yeah.
program or whatever, and it's been
Yeah.
like a week. And I try to tell people like, listen, I mentioned this, like it's going to feel confusing and, hard
Yep.
for a few weeks until this starts to click. So
Hmm.
how did you, I don't know, did you just trust the pro videos to push through that month, or, what made you push through that until it did start to click?
I definitely trusted the pro videos. I trusted the community, like the Superfast CPA community, was because people had the same story. It was like, oh, I was scoring lower at first, and then eventually you start to see your scores get higher.
Mhm.
And like that was very true. Like you literally feel like you're trudging in mud answering these questions. It's like someone's pushing you down every day, like 0 points, 0 points. Like at the end of your session, you have like a 20, 25. Um, but eventually you just start learning. So I think it was just the community saying, don't give up, like it's hard. And then literally, like especially if you're doing it every day, when you see your points even go up 2 or 3 points like every day, that's like, okay, I'm actually learning something. Or when you grasp a concept that you didn't grasp like last week, um, that's definitely what keeps you going. Right?
Yes. Yeah. When you start having those little breakthroughs, then it's
Mm-hmm.
just, yeah. I mean, when something's working, it's a lot easier to stay motivated and
Yeah,
push forward, like we were talking about
yeah.
earlier.
And the CPA is a hard thing. Like it's not something like there's accountants out there that, they're very smart people, but they just don't take the time to go through the test. It's very hard, so it's not going to be easy, right? Like if
Hmm.
it were easy, everybody would do it.
Yeah.
So it almost gives you like this badge of honor after you complete it because you're like that was a hard thing. This is probably one of the hardest things I've done like my whole life.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's so many things come into play. I mean, in college you kind of take this for granted, but just the structure of showing up to classes a few days a week, you
Mm-hmm.
kind of get walked through the material by going to the lectures. And then the CPA is more material than any college class you had, and it's all
Yeah.
on you to find the
Yep.
time, be disciplined, learn
Yep.
it. How do you learn it?
Yep.
I mean, there's just a
Yeah.
lot of elements involved.
Yeah. No one person, no one tool is going to do it for you for sure.
Yeah.
It's like it has to be you putting in the work.
Yeah. Okay, so I do have one actual last question. What would be your top
Sure.
one or two tips for anyone who's still in the study process, struggling? What would be your top tips to them?
I think one of my top tips is once you start getting into your own head, and you will get into your own head, just literally show up every day and answer questions. no matter how low you score, you just keep doing that every day. Like nothing else, do nothing else. And eventually you'll start to see the reward.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. All right. All right, Tiffany. Well, yeah, we've been through everything. I appreciate you doing the call. Ecstatic you found our program and that it worked so well for you. So, yeah, thanks for doing the call and congrats on being done.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
congrats
Thank
on
you for
getting your
having me.
license too. A couple like last
Thanks.
week. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, that was the interview with Tiffany. I'm sure you found that super helpful and inspiring. I definitely loved it. And maybe now we'll see a whole bunch of people showing up at Starbucks to study every day after this episode. If you like this podcast episode, make sure to leave a rating, or if you liked it on YouTube, make sure to like the video and comment on the video. And most importantly, make sure to share this with anybody that you know who is going through the CPA exam process. This podcast as a whole is the best free resource out there for CPA exam candidates. Thanks for watching or listening, and we'll see you in the next one.